Good evening and welcome to the regularly scheduled meeting of Nacogdoches City Council, November 19th, 2024. Kathleen, would you lead us in prayer, please?
Yes. Dear Lord, thank you for your many blessings. All who work and serve our city and our people, paid and unpaid, for our city, state, country, and world. We humbly ask for peace and for wisdom as we pray the prayer that Jesus himself taught us. And please pray with me if you would like to. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever and ever. Amen.
Okay. Next item, if you'll stand for the pledges, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
Okay, next item is open forum. Do we have any? And we have none. Okay, next item is items to be removed from the consent agenda.
Make a motion, we approve the consent agenda.
Second. We have a motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Now we'll go into the regular scheduled meeting. 6A, presentation by George Ellis, owner of the annual Loblolly Model Train Display. Mr. Ellis, if you'll come up, please.
Mayor, Council, thank you for your time tonight. Appreciate it. Thank you in advance. Got everything on the screen, which is, thank you. What you see in front of you is the historic depot. It's my main attraction on the Camino Real, and I don't know what city council saved the building and enabled me today to enjoy my hobby, but thanks to those people. Last year, we got blessed with a new sign out in front, and this year we've got a nice banner advertising the upcoming event starting the Friday after Thanksgiving, running for a total of 9 days, 3 consecutive 3-day weekends. In the past, we've had 1,500 to 1,600 people join us, and all different ages, and it's been a lot of fun. My colleague and I, J.R. Carruthers, moved into the depot on the 30th of September of this year. And with the help of Tommy Stanley's crew to do some heavy lifting of the boards for us, we were able to erect the platform to set up the trains. Consists of about 7 different panels that are all C-clamped together. Most of the track stays on top, and it's all pre-wired underneath. The origin of this layout probably goes back about 20 years. We used to move around East Texas with this layout, as far as Shreveport, Palestine, Kilgore, all the way up to Marshall. Unfortunately, our numbers in our group have dwindled, and JR and I are basically the only 2 left out of about a dozen gentlemen that came together. So we're trying to carry on the tradition. It's another shot inside the depot. And this is the final product after about 6 weeks. And I welcome all of you to come and see it. And there'll be some surprises this year. And to include a scavenger hunt, which went over very well last year. People come in and spend an hour or so looking for things that are hidden on the display. So it's more than just the trains. You'll also see some businesses advertised or named on the layout, and that spurs some conversation. My daddy works there, these types of things. Gentlemen come in and look at the other collection of my vehicles and say, oh, 55 Dodge pickup. I had my first date in that vehicle. So there's a lot of conversation, and again, it's more than just the trains. We have a new employee at the depot, Veronica Amo. Her staff, JR and I put together this little guy, and hopefully it'll be a nice opportunity for the young folks to come in and get their picture taken. So this will be a permanent fixture at the depot. Just want to say thank you to everybody that's participated and also for the support. My segue into the depot goes back to when the college was involved. Dr. Mark Behringer in the history department, and he and I talked about what I'm doing today, but on a much smaller scale. From there, it went on to Jessica Sal, and she was my partner for many, many years, even trusting me with the key to the depot, which made my life much easier. The current assistant director, Veronica Amo, and her staff have been very helpful, and look forward to the future and working with her. Also need to give a shout out to the maintenance folks, Mike and Frank, for keeping the lights on. Those ceiling lights are 18, 20 feet off the ground, and it's quite an effort. Also, Tommy Stanley's crew keeping the grounds up, and also the custodial staff to make it ready for welcoming the public. And if you're wondering, yes, I did meet my wife on a train ride. And she's with me tonight, my wife. So, that's all I have, folks. Thank you.
Stay right there, Mr. Ellis. I know you don't like to be talked about. Anyway, I've got something to say on behalf of the city of Nacogdoches and the entire council. You don't know how much we appreciate what you and your group have done over the years. You're ambassador to this city, and I just don't know how blessed we are to have something like this in this town, even though it's a hobby for you. I mean, it brings joy to not only little bitty kids, but much older kids also. And we're so fortunate for you to be here, for you to still have an interest in this and to want to do it. We just wanted to give you a proclamation telling you how much we appreciate it. Whereas Mr. George Ellis has served our country in the U.S. military, our natural environment as a retired forester, Stephen F. Austin State University community as a retired member of the University Police Department, and the Nacogdoches community by bringing together so many people of different ages, backgrounds, and interests. Whereas Mr. George Ellis understands the magic and science of electric trains and the magic and science of building a city. Whereas Mr. George Ellis has been working with trains since childhood and has selfishly given untold hours in more than 20 years exhibiting train displays in East Texas. Whereas Mr. George Ellis continues to selfishly exhibit and staff the Loblolly model train display at the Nacogdoches Train Depot for 13 years. Now therefore be it proclaimed that I, Randy Johnson, Mayor of the City of Nacogdoches, on behalf of the City Council, do here recognize Mr. George Ellis as honorary city architect, responsible for the building of a miniature city of Nacogdoches, complete with model trains, planes, and automobiles, and we ask you all rise in appreciation of his work and unwavering commitment. Mr. Ellis, please consider. These are fairly new. It's a umbrella that's got the city of Nacogdoches logo on it.
Thank you very
All
much.
right, thank you. Thank you so much.
I may just add, in 1968, I knew something about Nacogdoches, how to spell it, and how to say it. I was accepted to Stephen F. Austin to start school in September. Uncle Sam got in the way and gave me an all-expense paid trip to Southeast Asia. So delayed things. I just didn't get here as quick as I thought. So, but thanks again.
Yes, sir. Thank you. We ran out of money. We didn't have money to get a frame.
Next time.
Thank you again.
Thank you,
Mr.
sir.
Ellis, very much. I appreciate it so much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, George. Okay, next item, item 6B, discuss and consider authorizing the city manager to negotiate an agreement with Brown Reynolds Watford Architects to provide professional architectural and engineering services as described in solicitation FRQ 2410-127 for the design and construction of 3 new fire stations. Chief Brown.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Coming before you tonight, basically to cover what you just discussed. Staff is seeking council approval to enter into contract negotiations with BRW Architects to provide design, architectural engineering services for fire station construction related to the bond election. Tonight we have Ray Holliday from BRW, who's their principal architect. Here, he'll be available for questions here in just a moment, should you have any for him. Excuse me. 'Tis that season for me. If I could, we'll talk a little bit through our process and how we got to this point. In August, staff issued an RFQ, request for qualifications, that went out publicly. We had a pretty good response from that. We felt like it was robust. We had 12 different firms reach out to us from across the nation, Texas, locally. We had formed a committee to evaluate those RFQs, graded those, talked about it, and picked our top 2 candidates based on our scoring, and brought those 2 firms in for an interview and assessment. We provided them with a list of questions that were important to us, and also afforded them an opportunity to present to us, to give a formal video, picture-based presentation to us. After that initial, the final scoring, the criteria that we looked at were facility design, landscape integration, budget value, I can't talk tonight. I'm sorry. Project, I'm gonna slow down.
You've
Project budget.
been hunting too much. Is what
I've
you've
been out there a bit. And value engineering. Balancing essentials and the desired features, timeline, benchmarks and challenges, comparable fire station project examples, and the efficacy of their presentation and general delivery. So after that, those presentations were conducted, we met, we scored those again, and we came to our top performer by our criteria, which brings us to BRW. And so tonight we are asking for approval to authorize the city manager to begin contract negotiations with BRW to provide those services for architecture and design for 3 fire stations. Be happy to entertain any questions, or if you have any questions for Mr. Holliday.
I'll make a motion for approval.
I was just going to ask one little question.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
I was so impressed with the criteria and the number of the interest, the 12 firms that were interested. And how did you decide on all those different, on the variables and I thought they were really impressive and they were right spot on for our city. Just
Internal conversations, good people that came up with with those criteria. Also evaluating what other cities are utilizing for the same process. Just like anybody, we'll steal it if it's good. But a lot of work on the back end, especially from engineering, to help us with that. They have a lot of experience with that.
Well, I just think, and it's so straightforward and transparent. It was really helpful. Thank you. That's all.
All of the credit goes to staff because they are smarter and talk better than I can.
We won't add to that, I don't think. But I'm sorry, I interrupted your motion, but I just,
I've already made it.
okay, I'll second it.
I just want to say thank you for all the hard work that you and the staff have done. This is a long time coming. Let's get going.
Okay, any further discussion? There's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Mike.
Chief.
Next items, consider, item 6C, consider approval of a contract between the City of Nacogdoches and Purdue, Brandon, Felder, Collins, and Mott for the collection of delinquent municipal liens owed to the City of Nacogdoches.
Good evening,
Mr.
Mr.
Baker.
Mayor, members of the council, Jerry Baker, City Attorney. Here, as the mayor mentioned, for a proposed contract between the City of Nacogdoches and Purdue, Brandon, Fielder, Collins, and Mott LLP. The council should be familiar with this firm. It is the firm that represents and provides services for us for our ad valorem tax collections. Just to give you a brief overview of the authority here, under Article 2, Section 22 of the Charter, the city is authorized to enter into or impose liens on properties when they go in and perform services such as cleanup of that property, whether it's mowing, cleaning up of refuse or trash, or if required, demolition of buildings of that nature. The city has, based on that authority, passed ordinances giving the city and code enforcement and the authorities in the city that authority to go out and impose those liens when those services are provided. And those are in Chapter 14 and Chapter 34 of the Code of Ordinances. The proposed contract here before you with Purdue Brandon is for, as mentioned in the summary, the collection of delinquent municipal liens. And it's a contingent fee arrangement with Purdue Brandon. So essentially, for the services provided under the contract, the city would impose a 20% collection fee on those liens that have been imposed. And then that would be how Purdue Brandon is compensated through the contract. So it wouldn't be an hourly fee arrangement, but just based on that, the 20 feet for whatever collection services they provide. The city is authorized under Texas Government Code 2254-1036 to enter into contingent fee contracts, for legal services if certain requirements are met. One of those is a special notice has to be posted, which was posted with our regular notice. And also findings have to be issued in addition to the contract being authorized. Those findings must state that there's a substantial need for the legal services. The legal services cannot be adequately performed by the attorneys and supporting personnel of the political subdivision, and the legal services cannot be reasonably obtained from attorneys in private practice under basically an hourly fee contract. Those findings are included under the section with the proposed contract. We have Danny Barrett here from Purdue Brandon, who is ready to give a presentation. So I'm going to turn it over to him, and I'll be here available for any questions after his presentation.
Thank you, Jerry. Mayor, Council, very good to be here. I'm Danny Barrett. I am with Purdue Brandon. As Jerry said, we're the firm that does your property tax collection work. I'm also the director of our municipal services company at Texas Communities Group. Jerry did a great job of telling you everything about municipal liens. I'm not going to try to rehash a lot of that. One of the things we found out regarding recorded liens, a lot of those properties don't go through your traditional sales. Oftentimes they're distress sales, either foreclosures or John sells to Bill, and they don't go through a closing, and that lien doesn't get taken care of at the closing. So you're still out your money that you incurred in cleaning up the properties. So what we've done, we put together a program for the collection of those municipal liens. We take advantage of a section in the tax code 3391 that allows us to have expedited sales on vacant and abandoned properties. Those are properties where the ownership is vacated the property, or they've deceased and have no probate or will giving conveyance or the right to sell that property. So what happens, you have these properties that are kind of just left behind, sometimes traditionally low-value property, vacant lots and what have you, or maybe some dilapidated structures. But what we have done is we take advantage of 3391 in the tax code, where if the property has been vacant and abandoned for more than 12 months, and they have 3 years of delinquent taxes along with a municipal lien recorded on the property, we can group those properties together and have a expedited sale in about 3 or 4 months. It has become a great little redevelopment tool, getting those properties back into the economy. They go through a traditional foreclosure process once we advertise, but because we have to have somebody with knowledge of the property to sign an affidavit that it's vacant, abandoned, hopefully we'll work with your code department on that, because generally these are going to be perennial problem properties that you're mowing multiple times a year. You're not getting tax revenue on those properties, but you're having cost associated with those properties. So it's a great little process. We've had great sales with those, selling to property owners next door, across the street, maybe infill contractors that are looking for property. So it's a great little tool. Let me take you through a little bit what you get with it. I'll look here. Up the other way. There we go. Okay, there we go. I'm just upside down. What we do, we're going to take your liens that are recorded in your county clerk's office. We'll prepare a database of those liens that is shareable with your departments here that work with codes and finance and whatnot, that they can see the information. You'll be able to look up the properties by property, by situs address, and by property owner. And each time you look into it, it's going to give you an immediate payoff for full interest to that day. Like I said, you can search it anyway, because you can have sometimes multiple liens on the same property owner. This is kind of what our database looks like. Of course, we have the property identified, the lien recording date, interest, and total that's due.
Isn't that 123, isn't that the mayor's? Just
No, ma'am,
that-
it is not.
I was told that would be the number one property.
Yeah. I'm current.
I apologize.
Did I go backwards again? Am I going the right way?
I think it's over on Logansport. They just got his name wrong.
Whole street.
But we take advantage of that 3391. We cross-reference your delinquent tax roll with your lien database.
Why are you looking at me?
We're close. Close proximity.
Okay.
He's the
I
one with the
didn't wanna-
problem property that we're going to have to deal with.
I didn't want to make eye contact.
I was always told to make eye contact as I'm talking. The warrants are an effective way by grouping those properties together in one action. We save property owners court cost. We save the time and stuff on your clerk's office and your sheriff's office. It's really an efficient way to get to a lot of properties that way. And again, we're not moving properties that are residences or homesteads. These are properties that are vacant and have been abandoned by the property owner due to one reason or the other. But we cross-reference it, we get the list, and then we'll provide it to the city. Neighbors can sign the affidavit. It can be a great way to reach out to their citizenry and let them be a part of the process if they've been complaining about certain properties. For the properties that do not meet the tax code requirements in 3391, we are going to take those properties. We will update the ownership with the appraisal district information, update the addresses, and we put a notice in front of them letting them know that the property is encumbered by a lien, because it's the current owner that is still has to deal with that lien at some point in time. We give them the information how to get it paid and how they can pay it. It's a fairly nice letter, but we do let them know that their property is encumbered. And again, sometimes those sales, they don't go through a closing, so maybe it's been passed down, but your lien is still effective. You can kind of look at, there's a sample of the notice that we send out, try to keep in front of people and just make it easier to pay. If you don't get a bill, likely you don't get paid. What we found is in a lot of our cities of all sizes, once that lien's recorded, it's put in a filing cabinet, and that's kind of where it sits. And so this kind of gets it out in front, and we kind of lead the charge with it. All right, I'm Danny Barrett. I'm, like I said, Director of Texas Communities Group. Patrick Wood was hoping to be here, but he had a prior commitment. He's the partner that manages the collection efforts here in Nacogdoches. Wanted me to say hello, look you in the eye, and tell you he's sorry he couldn't be here.
Do you know how many properties, has there been any properties identified on this yet?
Yeah, I think so. I had met with Angela before, and we kind of have a little email thread going back and forth. And what we found, a good percentage of the properties that meet the tax requirements are also properties that are in her code enforcement department that they're dealing with on a yearly basis often. And so a lot of those names and properties were very aware to her and her department.
Is this the first time Nacogdoches has done this?
Yes, I would believe
So it's a new program?
Yes.
Yeah. And is there a bidding process? What, who buys these properties?
It's just like a regular tax foreclosure as far as the sale goes. It's an open auction at the courthouse steps on the first Tuesday of the month. We have to advertise those for 3 weeks in your local newspaper prior to the sale. One of the things we do on the noticing side in a tax warrant with TCG is it's 2024, it's about to be 2025, so we do a lot on social media. As far as with TCG, we run a Facebook page. We'll post the notice of seizures on your city website or any other Facebook page or social media page that you have.
And is it a bidding process for the people to buy it?
Yes, sir.
No, what about, because we hear a lot of times about people here that it's somebody died and the relatives live in Dallas and don't know anything about it. What are you going to do about finding these owners that have been absent for years and years and years?
Yes. So
What do you do?
we do a full title search on the property. And so we have to notice everybody that we can find and identify as a property owner. I think where we've helped, when we started this process, we didn't feel like we'd start any collections on it until we had the actual sale of the property. But I think by us going a step beyond, there's posting requirements. We have to post it in 3 places in the community, one being the county courthouse prior to the sale. Using our social media that we use, we're finding a lot of people. And so that person who might be a displaced heir, somebody here went to school with them and they see it on a web page or on the city's website and they happen to look and go, oh, I know John, we went to school together, he's living in Oklahoma, and the next thing you know, we have a phone call from an heir that may have interest in the property.
What if there's 20 heirs?
We try to contact as many of those as we can. Yes, sir.
But no elderly grandmothers that are 90 years old are going to be put out of their houses?
No, sir. These property has to be vacant for the
Okay.
past 12 months.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
My question is, the code enforcement, you got not that many working. When you say Angela, it's one other one, and then a helper. Right. For that process to be expedited, you're gonna need probably some more help.
Yeah, as
on
far as
that end of code.
identifying and verifying the vacancy, yes, sir.
That's what I'm looking at.
We could, anybody, the tax code requirement is anybody with knowledge of the property. So it doesn't have to be an administrative staff person or an elected official. It can be the property owner next door that's been complaining about it, or it can be one of your meter readers or so that's been going by that property for years.
Okay.
We'll take all the help we can get.
Gotcha.
Does this affect that land bank plan that you guys were talking about?
Would you like to speak to that?
I mean, this could be the basis for the beginning of a land bank. I think this would be the first step to see if we can clean things up and let the market kind of reset itself. I think the question is, I guess the other question would be then the next step after this in terms of us actively going after some of those properties at sheriff's sale, then that'd be another. Do you want to expand on that?
Certainly, you know, any entity can be a purchaser of those properties with council or commissioner court or board approval. One of those things, when we sell that property at the courthouse steps, what we get to do with this municipal lien contract in place is if the value happens to be above the taxes and the lien, and it does sell at the courthouse steps, you're gonna get both your lien and your taxes collected. For those properties that don't go to, that aren't sold at the courthouse steps for the required minimum bid, those fall into trust, which is owned by a city, county, school, any other entities that assess property here in the city of Nacogdoches. And at that point in time, we can certainly work with you guys as far as any type of development, or if you want your EDC involved with those properties, there's a world that you can do with those properties. When we started our TCG process, we kind of looked into land banks 2 or 3 different times from some cities, and kind of what we figured is we're more or less doing the same thing with the trust properties and stuff. So we'll help you manage those. If it's a piece of property that you feel like we can sell, get your approval, we can market it. We have a marketing strategy with trust properties that's worked really well. We've sold about 3,700 parcels that have been struck off since then. So that works really well. We work with entities, schools, counties. If there's a best use for that property, maybe a school bus barn wants to expand and there's property next door, we certainly favor the entities on those situations. But yeah, we can certainly, we think it's a really great start to a redevelopment tool.
And so I would say between that process, first getting ones back on the tax rolls, those that can't be, could we have an organized method of kind of helping direct that? And then with incentives, could you then do infill, for ownership, moderate income, single-family housing? That would be where we go with it. That's just my suggestion based on our prior discussions.
It's great, and I know there's so many pieces to getting this done, and I appreciate the contract as one of the first pieces, this contract here. And I know it's complicated, and appreciate you being so thorough, and you working with this. I know you've had a lot of experience with this in turning around properties that really had been kind of lost and messed up.
Yeah, I think we put together a good little process that we started doing one thing and it led to another, and we feel like we have a nice little package available to you tonight.
Okay, any further discussion? I'll entertain a motion.
I move that we approve item 6C as presented.
I'll second.
Have a motion second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Next item, 6D, consider approval of ordinance amending Chapter 34, Environment, Article 2, Weeds and Other Offensive Accumulation, and Chapter 14, Buildings and Building Regulations, Article 8, Minimum Urban Standard Codes, Division 4, Unsafe Structures of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Nacogdoches, Texas, providing a severability clause, providing a continuation clause, and providing a repeal clause, and providing an effective date. Mr. Baker.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, Jerry Baker, City Attorney. So what you have before you is related to the previous item. As I mentioned, it was a contingency fee arrangement, so it would impose a 20% addition to what we already have as far as liens on the books. And so what this amendment is before you is to Chapter 34-33, which lays out the assessment of costs once those services are provided by the city. So, for example, if the city goes out and mows a yard that hadn't been maintained or whatever, those costs are assessed against that in the form of a lien. What this would add an additional requirement there, as you see under subsection 9, which says to defray the cost of collections, the city shall impose an additional collection fee of 20% added on all debts and accounts receivable from the expenses incurred to bring any property in compliance with city code once the lien has been filed of record in the office of the county clerk. And the amendment to Chapter 14 is essentially to incorporate that same requirement when there is a demolition that's performed by the city for an unsafe structure. When that occurs and the property owner, for whatever reason, fails to or refuses to demolish that building, and the city has to pay for that. And then a lien is then imposed. So what this is doing is just tying that in back to that section as well. Is there any questions you may have?
Where does that money go, that 20%? Just
Well,
back
the
into
20%
the?
will go to Purdue Brandon for any collection
Okay.
services that they provide. So this is just adding to, in addition to what's already on the lien itself.
So I'll make a motion that we approve the ordinance as outlined in 6D.
A second.
Have a motion second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Item 6E, receive a presentation on stormwater drainage improvement project updates as part of a capital improvement program. Mr. New.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Mike New, Executive Director of Development and Infrastructure. This item is simply an update to the council on a specific segment of our capital improvement program, stormwater drainage projects. Hopefully we can make this something that we do on a regular basis, maybe quarterly or biannually with the council, to give you and the public a formal update on some of these projects as they're progressing. Many of them are multi-year, many of them are large scale, so it does take time. We wouldn't do this every month, but it's important for us to share with you and the public of Nacogdoches, some of these projects that are happening and give some context to what we're doing. A lot of times this is ongoing behind the scenes, but it's good to share this with the council and get your feedback as well. So real quickly, what is Capital Improvement Program? It's simply a tool. It's a strategic planning tool for us to fund projects. We have various funding sources for many, many projects, and because they're multi-year, we do have to use something like the CIP program, which many cities use, to just help move projects along and make sure that we're funding them appropriately and that we're following the right process to do that. It does involve nearly every department in the city as we coordinate these at the planning level and then execute them at the construction level. It's meant to be a bridge between implementing them and planning for them. In fact, we've had a great discussion today on coordinating some projects just from the past fiscal year, what we close out, what we continue and move forward, considering potential budget amendments, just simply identifying where these funding sources come from. So stormwater drainage in particular. I'm 2 months on the job. I'm still learning where everything is, where all the streets are, where all the projects are. But I did want to bring this to you and focus on stormwater drainage in particular. This was not only a discussion just over the past few years, but it involves locations all over the city. Areas that are vulnerable to flooding on a regular basis when we have extensive rainfall. So now that we've completed a few of these projects, kind of want to talk a little bit specifically about these locations. These areas, these various areas, and I'll have a map in a minute showing the areas of critical need. Public Works and our engineering staff have identified those. Even previous staff have identified certain locations. We've mapped them out. We've already secured one firm to design a few of these locations particularly, and now they're completing the construction of those activities, and then other locations where we're just starting the design. All of this is to prevent flooding on property, flooding on roads, stagnant water, and potential sources of pollution. Mitigate those things, get them off our roadways, get that water flowing where it needs to go, so it's not a potential hazard for anyone in the city. Funding for stormwater drainage projects in particular. So there's two funding sources I want to identify in particular. We'll start with Special Grant Fund, ARPA, American Rescue Plan Act of 2021. We did receive federal funding in particular for a number of CIP projects, but that includes stormwater drainage. We are utilizing this first project group. We're using ARPA funds for that project. We've identified that within the CIP as drainage improvements under the special grant fund. For FY25, we have $2.8 million, and I'll talk about some of that funding and cover the rest in these following slides. So drainage project number 1, 2.2 million, and pretty much a lot of these projects are consisting of the same things. They may look different, but essentially they're concrete culverts. They may be box culverts or head walls, concrete piping, and erosion controls for stormwater drainage located in particular under this project, Old Lufkin Road, Humphrey Road, Perry Drive, and Burke Street. Perry Drive and Burke Street are in progress now. You probably see a big hole in the ground at Burke Street if you've been near that location. But we did recently complete Old Lufkin Road and Humphrey Road, and I've included some pictures of those projects here. One thing I will note is that design under drainage project number 1, there is design for drainage project 2, and I'll cover that in a minute, but this is where some of the funding, we want to be very specific about how these projects are funded strategically within our program. So here's a location map. The map that I'm showing right here is from 2022. This was something I think discussed in preparation for the bond election. I'll cover some bond funded projects here in a minute. But these locations in particular, Perry, Burke, Old Lufkin, and Humphrey, are ones that we have recently completed or are in progress as of today. Here are some pictures, a couple of pictures of ones on the south end on Old Lufkin Road. You can see the rocks and the head walls. You got a little box manhole cover there. All this is to reinforce getting that drainage under the road without causing issues for vehicles traveling over that road. And these areas were identified in particular for this stage of the drainage projects because we did see some significant failure or really a lot of stagnant standing water in these areas. And Old Lufkin Road was one of those that had a lot of projects. Here's some other ones. You can tell they all look a little bit different because of the terrain, the topography, and I've got Case here too. He's online. He can step in if you have any questions about the details of these, but essentially a lot of the bones of these projects are the same. You've got concrete piping, you've got head walls, and erosion controls around the edge, just to make sure that water does not stay on the road causing any issues or remain stagnant, that it continues flowing where it needs to go. Humphrey Road, another one as part of this project, looks a little bit different, but Crockett Construction did a great job of moving these forward in a very timely manner. The two that are in progress, the pictures you see here are current status of Perry and Burke. And again, the difference here, what you would likely see on these when the projects are complete, what they currently look like now as they're in progress. I don't know, in case you might chime in, I don't know when Perry and Burke might be completed, maybe within the next 30 days.
That would be the hope, yes. Perry Drive, they were working on two of the 3 or 4 locations this week I saw, and then Burke Street, like I said, was basically demolished, and they're going to start placing those box culverts here pretty soon. So hopefully within the next month or so. Holidays may pose a delay issue with folks being off, but with the construction crews. But we would hope by the end of the year we'd be seeing those things start to wrap up.
Thank you. And these projects are all inclusive, so it doesn't include the street reconstruction, the detours for traffic, so that we're trying to minimize any disruptions for folks that normally travel on these roadways. Again, drainage project number 2. This was, the design has already completed. That was completed earlier this summer. A lot of the same components, erosion controls, concrete piping, head walls. This is for Logansport Street, Kenbrook Drive, and Colonial Hills Drive. We are still working on getting that solicitation for construction out, and that is an estimated amount, opinion and probable cost that we received on the project. So I'll consider that 1.046 million as an estimate until we get bids for construction. We don't know that exact dollar amount just yet. Again, speaking to the sort of the evolving nature of these programs, we don't know final cost until we do get those bids in on various projects. So we do our best to estimate ahead of time, budget for it, but as numbers come in, they may come higher, hopefully they come lower. But if they come in higher, then we make adjustments and we bring things back to council in either budget amendments or we present to you these changes so that you're aware. Drainage project 2, again, I highlighted that these are estimates And as of right now, and in the CIP, what we are looking at doing is identifying some additional utility fund money, not ARPA, but adding to the ARPA funding that we have, and pulling that from the water and sewer line additions and replacements. Roughly, depending on how the bids come in, they could come in low enough where this is not an issue. We don't have to identify those other funds. If we do, based on the probable cost, that's where we would pull from. So there is funding in this CIP that we can allocate towards the completion of Drainage Project 2. I'll touch on another segment that we're in progress on. Council, if you'll recall, I think it was the last meeting or the meeting prior, you authorized us to negotiate with 2 firms on the design of some additional stormwater drainage projects. We are in progress negotiating those. We'll bring contracts when those are ready for your approval. These are bond funded, so same stormwater drainage project, same type and scope of project at various locations within the city, but we're funding these with bond money this time. So 14.76 is entirely that fund. Within that entire fund, we have, again, Prop C, stormwater drainage, for this fiscal year, about 1.2 million. We've identified that as primarily design costs, and you can see the number of streets here is a bit larger than Drainage Project 1 and 2. So what we're doing is between 2 firms, and we're still negotiating those contracts today, but between 2 firms, they will design each one of those. We'll identify which firms they're going to propose some costs as part of their contract, and then we'll identify which firm does which design so we can get these projects moving very quickly. 1.2 for design for that critical storm reconstruction. Again, we'll evaluate based on when these designs are complete and have an idea on probable cost. Future capital improvement program budgets will reflect budgets for construction of these segments. And I'll entertain any questions.
Go on, sorry.
No, that's all right. Go ahead.
What's the process for picking which street gets fixed and which doesn't?
I'll let Case kind of expand on this, but I would say some areas are where the road section is critically failing above those piping structures. I know on Old Lufkin Road, we had the drainage piping just completely crumbling.
Yeah, I went out
underneath.
there, yes.
And so if water's not able to pass through in any capacity, that's a critical need. And so that becomes a higher priority within the project scope. And Case, you can expand on some of the other ones that we've outlined for the bond funds.
Yeah, Mike said it right. It's largely based on urgency. All of these are needed projects. All of them need solutions as quickly as we can, but like the squeaky wheel getting the oil expression, if these streets start to collapse around the pipe, we'll probably start to work on those first. But bottom line, just trying to get to these as quickly as we can, get through the design process as quickly as we can, so that each of these issues are addressed in as timely a manner as we can. Some of these areas have had more flooding than others. I know Stewart Street, for example, has had pretty significant flooding where Muckleroy and Sweet Gum Street come down and meet up next to Leroy, where all those kind of come into the bottom there, where there's no existing storm drainage off the road. That's caused some significant issues before. So that one may be, a higher priority than some of the others, but they're all very important to get done. And so I would say we'll just get to all of them really as soon as we can. But if problems start to creep up and show themselves more significant than in other areas, we would probably start to hit those on the front end before some of the others.
And we do get an economy of scale in bringing these especially these 2 firms, to design together. So if they're designing as one project, we do get cost savings there as opposed to trying to do individual street sections with different firms one at a time. If we bulk it together, we get significant cost savings.
Is there a deadline on the ARPA money?
That's a good question. Typically,
not currently. And I don't know if anybody from finance is there, but we utilized an option for reimbursement of salaries for the police and fire, and I believe that money has been accounted for, so we can spend it as soon as we can. But deadlines, I don't believe so, unless somebody from finance is there to correct
Todd's here. He's going to do it. and then I can speak on a couple of things.
So the ARPA funds have to be designated by the end of December 2024 and spent by the end of December 2026, and all the funds have been officially designated, so we're confident those deadlines will be met.
Yeah, because I thought that originally, when I first got on here, they were like, these are deadlines, it's got to be spent, so it's there. Okay, thanks.
And we're confident in moving these forward to spend those dollars, especially with the remaining funds contributing to design. We'll have that money spent.
Case, do you have a tab on Logansport Street running? I mean, I'm just saying, every time you turn around, there's something going on over there. I mean, never mind.
That's okay, I look forward to it.
This will hopefully be the last thing we do over there for a little while.
Do what?
I said this will hopefully be the last thing we do over there for a little while.
Oh, thank you, Case.
It's those tunnels that run between those sisters' houses that's caused a lot of that issue.
I have a question
There are
and
no
a
tunnels.
comment.
Yes, sir.
My question is, can you send us this presentation?
Yes, and I'll take the blame for that. I anticipated attaching that to the agenda. At future presentations, I'll have these slides prepared and attached to the agenda, so we'll send it to you.
Can you
And we'll
go-
post it online as well.
Excellent. Can you go back to the map? That map.
Yep.
I just want to thank my council colleagues because 3 of those big projects that we've already done with Storm Drainage Project 1 are in my ward, and I just wanted to thank you all for supporting those projects. And I want to double down on my commitment to make sure we take care of all of these projects. So thank you all.
Yes, sir.
And it's good to see Old Luckin finished and Burke and Perry in progress.
Absolutely.
So thank you.
Yes, sir. Any other questions, council? Thank you very much.
Just presentation. Okay. Thank you, Mike, very much.
That was really, really helpful. Really appreciate it.
Okay, that concludes the regular session. We will now go into executive session pursuant to Texas Government Code Section 551.072 and Section Code 551.087. We will return shortly. Thank you very much. Pursuant to Texas Government Code Section 551.072 and 551.087, no action. It is 7 o'clock or 7:01. God bless the great city of Nacogdoches, Texas. This meeting is adjourned.